scientist, and this is just a few other sciencey things. Okay, so like I said, we're going to talk about bacterial evolution and antibiotics. And I want to make sure you guys know that this is not evolution. Anyone know who these guys are?
X-Men.
Okay,
X-Men
good.
and Men.
Can anyone tell me what evolution is? Does anyone have a definition?
The change of evolving.
Oh, one person at a time. Raise your hand.
Evolving through time.
Yes.
The way something adapts to its environment.
Okay, but it's not just one thing adapting to its environment. It happens over time through generations. Yes.
Guys, if you can't be quiet, we're not going to continue. Raise your hand if you want to comment. Otherwise, be quiet, please.
Go ahead.
The way an organism adapts over long periods of time to its environment changes.
More like a species. So you're not just going to have an organism. So yeah, it would be a trait, a change that gets passed down to offspring and is evolutionarily favorable. So that those changes continue to be passed down. So we have the X-Men, and in the movies they are like Homo superior. They're like a new species. They say that they're evolution, but really these are just random mutations. And most mutations really aren't very fancy, which you guys probably figured out since you don't see anyone who has these cool superpowers, which is kind of sad. Mutations are more like brown hair versus red hair versus blonde hair. So
see, that's funny because that's the exact example I use when I teach them evidence of evolution.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so they'll see that next week.
All right. So I'm going to start talking about microbes. Microbes basically a general term for anything that you need a microscope to see, organisms that you need a microscope to see. Most of the time people are talking about bacteria, but there's also eukaryotic organisms, fungus, different things like that that are also microscopic, which fall into the microbe category. I'm mostly going to be focusing on bacteria today, but I'm kind of using the broad term microbes as well. Some people include viruses in microbes, some people don't. So I guess that's just kind of preference. So microbes first appeared about 3.6 billion years ago, very long time ago, and they were evolving and changing slowly over time. About 2.5 billion years ago, some bacteria started to produce oxygen. It was one of their byproducts. And oxygen, which we all breathe all the time, but it's actually it's very toxic. It actually forms a radical, so it can cause a lot of really harmful products. So a lot of bacteria actually died off. So it's actually a huge extinction level event, way before the dinosaurs were killed off. So that was kind of a big step in the evolution of bacteria. A lot of them either died, or they adapted and learned to survive with oxygen, or they just stayed in places that didn't have any oxygen. We still have bacteria that do not do well with oxygen. They're called anaerobic, and they generally stay away from oxygen environments. Oops. Okay, so now for the shock and awe facts about microbes. So 90% of the cells in your body are not human. They're not your cells. They belong to mostly bacteria, which is kind of freaky if you think about it. There's bacteria all over your body. Inside your body, outside your body, on your skin, pretty much everywhere. And the bacteria, most of it's good for us. Or a lot of it, some of it we don't really, maybe it's good, maybe it's not, but a lot of it's good for us. We need it. And it's just when some bacteria comes along and takes over that we have problems and tend to use antibiotics when we get bacterial infections. Only 1% of bacteria can be grown in culture, which means until more recently with sequencing. Do you guys know what sequencing is? When I say sequencing, does that make any sense?
They probably don't know what it means to grow in culture either.
Okay, alright, so culture. Basically, you can see that plate right there. That's a Petri plate with some smiley E. coli. I don't know, can you guys see that? So growing in culture means that we can grow the bacteria in a lab and we can learn something about it. A lot of bacteria, most bacteria, 99% of bacteria, we cannot make it grow in the lab. If we find it, it's too bad, we just can't grow it. So the way that we learn about it is that we can grab up, essentially soil samples, for example. And then we look at a specific section of their DNA that's codes for a gene, the 16S rRNA. and that's how we determine species of bacteria, and that allows us to get information about a lot of other bacteria that we didn't know was there before. And okay, so another interesting fact about microbes, that 98% of the ocean's biomass is made up of microbes. So biomass is like the weight, the mass of things from what's living. So even though you have huge whales and sharks and fish and everything, most of the biomass of the ocean is from microbes. Oh, and this, I also wanted to mention to you guys that bacteria can transfer genes horizontally. This is probably not something you guys are going to learn about for quite a while. But when we normally think of the way genetic information is passed, we think of it vertically. So like you have kids, and you pass your genes on to your kids, they pass genes onto their kids, so that would be vertically. Horizontally is like holding someone's hand and all of a sudden you guys have the same hair color. Bacteria can do that. We can't do that. Bacteria can do that though. And that's called horizontal gene transfer. And that's another way that bacteria can evolve that we don't do that. Okay, so antibiotics kill bacteria. You guys probably know that. That makes sense. But they kill a lot more than, say, your strep infection. They kill too much, essentially, which is why a lot of times, you get stomach problems when you're taking antibiotics. It's because they kill a lot of your good bacteria in your intestine as well. And that's kind of a problem. And also, have you guys heard of antibiotic resistance? Hands? Anyone?
We
Are you
mentioned a
familiar?
little bit about it last time.
All right. So antibiotic resistance is the concept that a bacteria is no longer able to be killed by antibiotics. All right. Okay, so we're back to the X-Men, okay? So this is Hugh Jackman. This is just kind of a visual of a simplified version of antibiotic resistance. So here we have a bunch of bacteria, and let's say we don't want them. They're a strep infection, so we want to get rid of Hugh Jackman. So we add a lot of antibiotics, okay? Maybe we don't do it right, maybe there's too many being added over time. Anyways, this is a process that would happen over time, got all those antibiotics affecting Hugh Jackman. Most of him gets killed, okay? Most of that bacteria gets killed. That guy right down there did not get killed. Instead, he developed a mutation. Maybe it was random, but for whatever reason, it helped him survive the antibiotics. So since he survived those antibiotics, he became Wolverine. So now the antibiotics cannot kill him, okay? So he is now resistant to antibiotics. And with that antibiotic resistance, he goes on to make more Wolverines, and he can transfer that Wolverine antibiotic resistant mutation to other bacteria. And so then you've got the whole big spread of antibiotic resistance. This is what we don't want. We're going to keep him in the movie, and just one of them.
So that's evolution of bacteria there, guys. That's how bacteria change.
Yes?
Can, since you said antibiotics can kill, like, the good bacteria also, like, I mean, like, bacteria that we live with, and, okay, can they, like, really harm your cells and stuff? Like,
Antibiotics are aimed at prokaryotic cells, and our cells are eukaryotic. Are you guys familiar with those terms, prokaryotic and eukaryotic? Okay, so antibiotics are made by mostly other microbes make antibiotics. It's kind of like their warfare against each other. So like fungus can make antibiotics, other bacteria will make antibiotics to try and clear their environment of other prokaryotes. So they're specifically designed to target prokaryotic bacteria. So really they should have no effect on our cells. So I showed penicillin up there earlier. Penicillin is designed to inhibit growth of the cell wall of bacteria. It's made of peptidoglycan. And our cells don't have that. They have a completely different structure on the outside, so that doesn't affect us.
so what would we use penicillin for?
So penicillin is used to kill a bacterial infection. So like if you get strep throat or an ear infection, so then it's killing the microbes that are in your system. It's not killing your cells, but when you're taking it, especially if you take it and it goes through your digestive tract, it's going to kill those microbes in your digestive tract that are there and help you digest your food. And that's why people get a lot of stomach problems when they've been taking antibiotics. It's because your good bacteria is going away. and it takes a while to build that population back up. Any other questions? Okay, so with antibiotics, we've kind of, I don't know, I guess pushed evolution into overdrive because we've just used them so much. I mean, when we first started using antibiotics, I don't think anyone realized that this would be a problem, that we would start having antibiotic resistance and bacteria that we couldn't kill with any of the antibiotics that we have today. But so we've really forced bacteria to change a lot by putting pressure on them and killing most of them, but then ones that happen to mutate and be able to survive those antibiotics are the ones that are able to survive and thrive. And like I said before, so those antibiotic resistant genes can be passed down through as the bacteria divides and makes new bacteria, and also through handshakes to other bacteria. And so right now we're currently, I guess, sort of in an arms race between drug development and bacteria, because the way it's set up right now is the bacteria that are antibiotic resistant. Have you guys heard of MRSA? Have you heard that term? Okay, it's a very resistant bacteria. So it's a big problem because it causes a lot of infections, and it's really hard to kill because it's antibiotic resistant to so many of the antibiotics that we currently have. And so the problem is if we keep adding more antibiotics and these bacteria keep changing and mutating and they're able to keep surviving, then we're just causing more problems. More harm than good in the long run if we end up with a bunch of bacterial infections that we can't cure. So anyways, this is something for you guys to think about because this is very relevant. So if you go into science, this would definitely be a good area that you guys could research. And one way that we can kind of cut down on antibiotic use and hopefully combat the bad bacteria is probiotics. Have you guys heard the term probiotic? No? Do you guys eat yogurt?
Malt?
Yeah, have you ever seen on the yogurt container it says live and active cultures? That means you're eating bacteria. No, that's the good bacteria. You're eating probiotics. These are bacteria that are healthy, that are good for your system. These are the bacteria that you want to fill your system with, and they will do what we call outcompete the bad bacteria or yeast. Yeast can also take over if you've had a bunch of antibiotics and the bacteria get killed off. So if you keep your system stocked with probiotics and good bacteria, then they'll form a nice good home and other bad bacteria will be less likely to come in and take over. And I wanted to encourage you guys to kind of be a scientist every day and in everything that you do. I know that probably seems, I don't know, science, and if you're thinking about college, grad school, whatever, seems really far away. And for me, high school was a really long time ago, and I certainly wasn't thinking about what I'm doing now when I was in high school. But just make sure that you don't stop asking questions and that you're constantly thinking about things, and anything that you're interested in that you learn about in school, just know that there is so much more than what you're being taught. Everything is simplified so that we can kind of make sense of it and condense it and fit it in. Even in grad school, the things that I'm being taught in classes are simplified. So if I want to learn more about it, I can go ask the person teaching me or someone who studies that, or I can go find it in a book or read a paper and learn more in depth about something. So just remember that. Just remember to educate yourselves so you can be well-educated citizens and make good decisions. Let's see. Oh, and I wanted to tell you guys really quickly about a project. It's called the Wogsland project, and it's aimed at high schools, and there's different high schools around the country that do this project. And it's basically hands-on science experiments with bugs and bacteria. And I told Mr. Taylor about it, and he seemed pretty excited about it. I'm not sure if you guys will get to start it this year. I don't know how long it feasibly takes, but it involves going out and collecting insects and testing them for this bacteria called Wogsland. And then you get to send away your DNA samples if it has Wogsland in it, and they get sequenced, and then it comes back, and you guys get to actually like look at their genetic code for that bacteria and kind of compare it. And there's a big database. There's a lot of high schools around the country doing this and essentially working with scientists. And Wogsland is actually really interesting. They're using Wogsland to target mosquitoes to try and cut down on mosquito populations and help with malaria and West Nile virus. So Wolbachia is another thing that's pretty important for science and could be something that you're studying one day if you're interested. And that's all. Any questions? Oh, come on, I'm sure you guys have questions. You can ask me about anything sciencey or not so sciencey.
Where do babies come from?
I had a question about whatchamacallit, but he never wanted to answer it for me.
I told you we're not getting to it yet. We are going to talk about it, but you can ask her.
How did females and males come about having sex?
I do not know. I don't know. I'd say evolution over a very long time because microbes don't have sex.
It actually started with bacteria.
Yeah.
Because don't some bacteria reach across and exchange genetic information?
Yeah, that was kind of the hand holding that I was talking about.
Yeah.
That's the horizontal gene transfer. They do that, but they don't have to do that. Like bacteria, when they divide, they don't need a partner. It's just like cell division essentially in our body. It's very similar to that. The cells just divide and then you got two bacteria. And then as an organism gets more diverse, I guess, and more advanced, you need that genetic information from elsewhere in order to diversify the population. And so, I don't know, maybe that's sort of more of a why, not a how, though. I don't know how. None of us were around for that, so we don't know.
Yeah, that's the proposed way of how it started. So, bacteria holding hands.
Yeah. Oh, hold on, guys. We got another question.
Listen up, please.
What are your son's food allergies?
Oh, my son's food allergies. Let's see, milk, eggs, peanuts, and tree nuts.
Peanuts raw. What are tree nuts?
Tree nuts would, okay, so peanuts aren't really nuts. They're actually legumes and they grow underground. So tree nuts or everything else we call a nut. Real nuts actually grow in trees. So pecans, almonds, walnuts, yeah. All those other things are tree nuts.
So was he diagnosed like when as he got older, or was it like as a baby?
When he was a baby, we noticed it pretty quickly. Like the first time I gave him formula, he threw up a lot, so we stayed away from formula. And I think we first went to an allergist when he was about 1.5 years old. So, but we had already cut out milk, and I guess the first time we gave him peanuts, he also he rubbed, babies rub stuff all over themselves. He had peanut butter, and his face started to swell up, and he broke out in hives. So it was really early that we knew that he had food allergies.
How old is he now?
He's 8 now.
So was he allergic to milk?
Yeah, he's allergic to milk. So even if milk touches him, it's been a big worry for us in school. We always try to make sure when he's at school and lunch, he doesn't sit next to any messy kids that spill milk a lot, because if it gets on his skin, he'll break out in hives and he'll feel really sick and he'll have to be cleaned off immediately and given Benadryl.
So what is he allergic to?
Milk, eggs, peanuts, and tree nuts. So all nuts.
Oh, that's such
Can't live without peanuts. Can he eat cake?
He can eat cake. We just modify recipes. So a lot of people think he can't eat chocolate, but he can. It just can't be milk chocolate because he loves chocolate.
Don't try
So like you can't eat like almonds or whatever?
No almonds, no nuts, nothing like that.
What's the difference between an allergy and a disease that makes you not able to eat it? Like, what's the difference between a gluten allergy and celiac?
Okay, so that was a really good question. Okay, what's your name? Garen. Okay, guys, Garen just asked what's the difference between a gluten allergy and celiac disease. And that's a really, really good question. Allergies in the true sense, usually we refer to them, when we say allergy, we mean something that's antibody mediated with IgE, like a hypersensitivity reaction. Like if you guys have pollen allergies, or if you've ever broke it down in hives, these are all IgE mediated. If you heard of anaphylaxis, anaphylactic shock, anything like that, that's IgE mediated as well. So allergies are IgE. Basically you have IgE that's made in response to that protein. Like so this is a peanut, you've got your IgE antibody, which actually looks like a Y, and it reacts to that and causes a system-wide reaction. Whereas celiac disease, which I don't know as much about, it is cell-mediated. It's actually a problem with the cells. So where in your intestines they don't respond well to gluten, they sort of lay down and they don't do their job as far as absorbing nutrients goes. So, any other questions?
All right, guys, let's give her a hand. So if you came in late and didn't get the story, she was in our Twitter chat last week and just happened to see that we were talking about this stuff. A scientist, she hopped in on the chat, started talking, found out she was here close. I said, hey, come visit my class. So this is why I use Twitter, because we can make these kind of connections. Okay? So this is kind of cool that she come all the way over here. One student thought she actually drove from someplace far away to come talk to us, which would be really cool, but it's still cool that this happened. So.
Yes, I left last week.
Yeah. We're going to have another Twitter chat this next Tuesday, so a week from today, and we're going to be talking about evolution. 8 o'clock.
I know something like that.
All right.
The scientist showed me up and
I don't like it.
Okay, anyway.